Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for the Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have in it is Observer System Redux, a game developed by Bloomer Team, and it is using Unreal Engine 4. So Bloomer Team, it is the developers behind games like Blair Witch, the Layers of Fear 1 and Layers of Fear 2, and the upcoming Median, which will release last year. It was supposed to be released now on December, but thanks to Cyberpunk being delayed to December, the Median developers, the Bloomer Team, decided to postpone the release to January. Smart guys, I guess. So they focus mainly in horror games mostly, and walking simulators. So yeah, they focus kind of horror games mixed up with walking simulators, mixed up with puzzles and good narratives. I think that this is not what they were all the time, but it is clearly what they decided to be as a developers recently, and I think they really do a great job in that. So we are here to try how this game runs on the Intel UHD 620, and I'm running with low settings. I did apply the frame rate cap of 30 frames per second. I've done this because mostly temperatures. My CPU overheats a lot when using the Intel HD, and so if I apply a frame rate lock, it gets more consistent and, you know, less high temperatures. So to show you the difference, this is the game without anti-aliasing. Alright, it is way more sharper, which is good, but also I think it highlights a lot of issues with playing with off resolution scaling. Alright, because I'm playing at 720p low settings, but the resolution scaling, it is cut to off. Alright, you either choose off, which is 50%, or you either have your regular native resolution. So this is the minimum requirements, and they are pretty beefy on the GPU department. So on the CPU, they just ask an i5 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM. And for 720p, they do ask a GTX 1050 or an AMD Radeon RX 560 with 4GB of VRAM. So we are clearly below the minimums, but yet we are able to run the game. So at 720p using low settings, if you decide to use the resolution scaling on full, your average will be 23 frames per second. Most of your experience will be under 30 frames per second. I should say that for this game, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. Not too much of a difference, but it is playable under 30 frames per second. But I just don't want to do it. You know, it's unplayable for most of the people, and I don't want to say that that's the way you should play. So because of that, I decided to use off resolution scaling, which is 50%. And by doing this, my average frame rate, it was pretty good, almost close to 50 frames per second. Although my minimums are pretty low. This happens because, unfortunately, I believe this is a CPU limitation in here, because I'm running my CPU without turbo boost. By default, all the Intel CPUs brings turbo boost enabled, but since I have overheating issues with my laptop when using the default turbo boost, what happens really is that I had to disable turbo boost, and I've been using turbo boost disabled throughout all my tests in games, and for the most part I don't have too much of a difference. Despite the clock difference, it is huge, because my main limitation in games, it is usually the GPU. But in this game specifically, I feel that having the turbo boost enabled kind of gets rid of most of the stuttering, but also brings again the heat. So if your laptop, it is running just fine at default without disabling turbo boosts, probably your experience in this game will be pretty good regarding stuttering. You won't be having too much stuttering. But for me, and as you can see on the video, I have stuttering all the time. Every time I make a 180 degrees turn, or every time the game needs to load assets, the game just stutters a lot. It is game breaking? No, it isn't. It is perfectly playable, none of the rest. It is just annoying as hell. Right? Playing at 30 frames per second this game, it is also not annoying at all. This is a walking simulator, so you can play at 30 frames per second. Also, but what is also annoying, it is playing with off resolution scaling and at 720p, because it gets pretty blurry when you are using TXAA, and if you are not using it, is just way too sharp, and you can notice all the aliasing going on in the game, which is pretty hard to watch, you know. And there are some things that playing with this such low resolution scaling, I mean, it is kind of tough because this game have a lot of stuff that is written on screen, like the door numbers or stuff that is written on the PCs that have a form of newspapers. It is hard to read at this resolution scaling, so it might be, you know, a little bit game breaking. You need to make a big effort to try to understand what the hell is written there, because it is really hard to read at this resolution scaling some of those news, and you might be missing something. So in my opinion, it is hard to recommend you to get Observer System Redux to play on the Intel. Although it is a game that you can start and finish with this graphic card at 30 frames per second, with low settings, and with stuttering if your CPU isn't good enough. But it is playable, alright? It is just, the resolution is so low that sometimes might get in the way of reading stuff or just trying to enjoy the environment, which is something that Bloober team actually does very well. It is detailed environments, and you are missing out if you are going to play the game like this. Alright, so I think that's all that I want to talk about the performance. Let's now talk a little bit about the game. What is the Observer System Redux? So, the Observer System Redux. It is some kind of a small remaster, probably let's call it some sort of definitive edition. The original game was released 3 years ago, and this remaster contains a lot of new features and improvements comparing to the original. So that might not be worth to you to check it out if you already completed the original one, but if you really want to revisit the game in a better shape, or you are buying it for the first time, this is definitely the way to go. And in fact, you can't buy the original anymore, so you can only get this remastered version. So starting with the graphics, lighting was brutally improved. There is volumetric lights all over the place, so there is a big change on tone. And I was a little bit afraid because on the demo version that they did release for this remaster, the lighting was a little bit weird, but it seems that they fixed it in the original game. So lighting, it is definitely better than the original and miles away from the demo that they did release. Although, since we are playing on low settings, you don't get any of these improvements that I have listed on this GPU. So all the volumetric lighting and all the improvements in lighting are just not here comparing to the original or comparing to the demo. So that's something for when you have a GPU that it is able to run the game at medium settings, you will get that improvement. Also, there is ray tracing support. Unfortunately, I still don't have a ray tracing card, so I can't really tell how much of an improvement it is. Textures were improved as well, as many animations and effects, and there is also 3 new side quests that should give you about 1 or 2 hours of extra gameplay, including more interrogations and a ton of quality of life improvements. So yeah, more bug fixes, and also stealth was redesigned. It is slightly different, but it should work the same way. If you didn't play the original, or if you don't know, it is a horror game as form of a walking simulator. This is what Bloober teams actually manages to do better. It is their walking simulators. So this game is set in the year 2084. You are searching for your own son, called Adam, in a poor apartment block during a quarantine, which affects augmented citizens. Deus Ex anyone, huh? You have tons of puzzles to solve and jump scares to catch, because definitely that's the way that the game will scare you. It will be through jump scares. The biggest thing about the game is that you can go inside people's minds, because you have kind of a device that allows you to connect to someone and get inside their minds and travel across their memories and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very psychedelic moment, and it's a big key feature of the game, of the Observer, and it's their selling point as well. But unfortunately, it can also be the worst thing about the game, because sometimes those moments just drag too much on that in psychedelic environment, which many times you are not understanding what the hell is going on, and yeah, it just drags too much. So if you are curious about those moments, I decided to include one of those moments on this gameplay. It should be the last thing you will see on this video, and this is still one of the smallest ones. It's because the other ones will be bigger, so I really think this causes a big issue on the pacing of the game, because it just drags too much. So it's a game that you can expect to finish between 6 to 8 hours if you don't rush the stuff. And, well, that's pretty much you can expect from Observer System Redux. It is a puzzle-based game, on and as well as an horror game inside a walking simulator game that have a very good narrative and very good a very good environment if you are into cyberpunk style. And I just want to say that the voice actor, the main voice actor of the game, it's just passed away, and he have done a great job. So rest in peace. His name is Rutger Hauer. I think it's how it is spelled, and they have done an excellent job on this game. But unfortunately, it isn't here anymore to play, or at least to hear his own voice on Observer System Redux. So guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Observer System Redux. Hope you did enjoy the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Right. I'm heading out. Can you give me full access to the building?
Systems. Unstable. Unlocked. What I could.
Thanks. You better stay here. There might be some very nasty people out there.
Nasty. Bad.
Look, just stay safe. You know what? I never got your name. I'm Dan.
Name. Janus. Like a... Oh my god. You know.
Sorry I gave you a hard time earlier. Good to meet you. Janus.
Hey! You! I can hear you out there! Help me, please!
Anyone here? Jesus. A second victim. Badly injured, but still breathing. Don't be afraid. I'm here to help. Who did this to you? Listen to me. The building's on lockdown. There's no way I can help you now. But I can get whoever's responsible for this if you help me find him. Don't try to talk. There's another way.
Subject approved. Commencing neural interrogation.
should get me through the week.
Yeah, thanks. What the fuck, man? I told you not to show up during the day.
You'll rot in here.
This fucking slop again.
It's called soup. Now dig in, it's not getting any better.
see right through you. I saw that underneath all your muscles and tattoos, you were like a big wounded animal. Lost. Alone.
Hey, at least you knew what you were getting into.
Yeah, I guess I did.
In sickness and in health, forsaking all others.
To have and to hold from this day forward, until death do us part.
Any regrets?
None.
You have to try. Do it for me. For us. You're strong enough to beat this thing. You can do it. I know you can. Wake up! Something's wrong with me. Get help! Get help!
Get out of here! Run! Get help!
Caution. Low synchronization. Administer secrecy. Neural interrogation aborted. Subject expired during questioning. Emergency extraction procedure successful.